3.5 years ago, I almost lost my life. Ended up getting hospitalized for many months, surgeries, multi-million-dollar bill, unnecessary, by the way, completely unnecessary. I was a very lucrative billing opportunity for the mainstream American healthcare system, which, by the way, is neither health nor care. Computer brains are like a language model that is interpreting every data point from its environment as a prompt. What are the invisible pre-prompts that are running before every single interaction? Part of this work is identifying what are those pre-prompts running before every situation or conversation or thing that's said to you, and can you get rid of those so that you can embrace reality very neutrally? It's like your early social circle and network. Who were the people around you? Were you surrounded with other folks who had, unique amounts of knowledge and access, or were you not?
Today on The Luba Show, I have Jacob Peters, an incredible storyteller, serial entrepreneur, co-founder and CEO of Superpower, a platform unlocking your new health intelligence. I am so excited to have Jacob here. I've actually known him for almost exactly 5 years. He's been a really dear friend that I've seen grow and evolve over quite a few years now. We talk about the subconscious, his upbringing, his desire for changing the healthcare industry, how he hires a cracked team, how Superpower has started, and so much more. And I am thrilled to have this conversation with you today, Jacob. Jacob Peters.
Luba.
Welcome to the Luba Show. You are one of the most visionary, best storytellers, and most positive people I know. And it's really great to see you move into the new office. And it's really funny because it's a full round circle for me, because 12 years ago, I actually interned here in this building at Yelp. Exactly. So it's really fun to, kind of go down the memory lane, see the lobby. It's one of the first skyscrapers in San Francisco. Dope office. Congratulations.
It's gorgeous and gilded.
And gilded.
Yes, it's gilded gold for those.
Oh yeah, that's true. The lobby is gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely the person that I would expect to get gilded gold offices. Okay, but actually, on a serious note, I want you to bring me back to your origin story. You're from Virginia. Tell me how you grew up. What were you like when you were growing up?
I feel like I am not anything like I am now. And I think my biggest conclusion as I've been on this, I guess I like to call life like a consciousness expansion journey, is how much the subconscious is really running the show. Like truly, truly, truly. It's a lesson I feel like I keep learning every month, every week, harder and harder and more deeply, which is the degree to which the iceberg under the surface is really changing the way we process every single piece of information that comes our way. And I think for the first maybe 2 decades of my life, that was running me on autopilot. And it can be a very powerful autopilot. Something I think a lot about is this idea of like clean fuel versus dirty fuel, or like what is the subconscious, iceberg, if you will, under the hood that is pushing you forward. And in some cases, it can be a chip on your shoulder, subconscious childhood wounds, things that bothered you, got under your skin, maybe things you didn't even really realize were happening at the time and affecting you so deeply. And that can give you like a chip on the shoulder energy, which can propel you to want to do things in life, like become an entrepreneur, push the world forward, prove something to people. Or if you get out of that paradigm and that way of operating and you kind of understand the subconscious patterns and rackets that drive you, I think you get to this place of operating from a higher level of consciousness where you're feeling more abundant, in control, loving, and like aligning your actions and your interpretations of every moment with passion and something that can really help and impact people, versus you trying to prove something to a wounded inner part of yourself. So the whole thread throughout, I guess, the upbringing in my life was that I was operating from this like terrible place of just lack and protectionism. People used to say I was robotic and aloof. I mean, part of it is maybe the mild Asperger's, which I found out later in a couples therapy session with my ex-fiance that I had. But I think, in fact, it was actually just me being afraid to show my true colors and my true self and put myself out into the world, because I felt ashamed of who I was and was very fearful of failure, fearful of judgment. I remember growing up in preschool, I used to put my backpack in front of my face when my mom went to pick me up because I was like embarrassed for her to see my face. Like, I just, that was like basically, you know, that story is the vibe that I think I carried into early life, childhood, formative years in school, and made me feel like I had to prove something to the world, which is what catalyzed my early businesses. So it's been a dance with the subconscious, if you will, is how I now choose to look at my life in the rear view.
So I know you've been doing a lot of diving deeper into your subconscious with the retreats that we've talked about, with all your personal work that you've been doing. But to me, I met you, we were talking about it almost exactly to the T 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Another full circle moment.
Yeah, another full circle moment, which was also a time and place, Launch House Tulum, a really fun time, COVID times. And actually, even already back then, you felt like very abundant and positive person to me. So I know you've gotten the lingo for the subconscious, for childhood wounds and all those things in the last couple of years. But when would you say you recognizing that you were building or your drive was coming from a place of lack was? Like, when was that moment in time?
Interesting. You know, I don't know if it's a moment in time as much as it is a constant tension. Like, I would be lying if I said I have or ever will reach a level of subconscious mastery and understanding where the conscious, like, abundance mindset is fully driving the show. I think it's always like an oscillation, and you have to be conscious of like where you are in every moment.
Where are you right now?
Where am I right now?
Yeah.
I think genuinely I'm feeling like I'm vibrating pretty high, but the challenge is like you can get too wrapped up in that narrative, and then the ego is this like pernicious snake that, like, you know, invisibly will rear its head, and it'll pop up when you least expect it. But I genuinely feel like you and I are talking to each other as old friends and elevated souls at the moment. And all this, like, you know, can sound a little bit like buzzwordy or woo-woo, but like I think you know, one of the interesting things about life is like once you develop a language and a framework for things, it's so much easier to become aware. And one of the other ways I feel like I've started to develop this awareness is this concept of interoceptive awareness. Have you heard of this phrase?
It's something related to body awareness, right? It's
Kind of
like
body
somatic awareness.
Exactly, right. So there's like psychological awareness, which is like what patterns are showing up for me right now. If human meat computer brains are like a language model that is interpreting every data point from its environment as a prompt, what are the invisible pre-prompts that are running before every single interaction? And in my case, in my old childhood, it was like, you're not good enough, you suck, you have to hide yourself, you know, you're going to get judged, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of those come up for us. So I think part of this work is identifying what are those pre-prompts running before every situation or conversation or thing that's said to you, and can you get rid of those so that you can embrace reality very neutrally and rationally and abundantly. So that's sort of like the world of, I think, subconscious awareness. Then there's interoceptive awareness, which is understanding the biochemical state of your body. And that's obviously what we're all about at Superpower, which is helping people like very tactfully understand exactly what's happening in your body subcutaneously at any point in time. And it's crazy that we just don't have that level of intelligence.
That's why we're here in front of the Superpower backdrop
like
to really drive the message home.
Exactly. Our latest marketing message is like unlock your new health intelligence. And yeah, the I think ability to tap into that intelligence, like a wisdom, if you will, to know what is happening in your body at any point in time biochemically. Are you more serotonergic or dopaminergic, or GABAergic or acetylcholinergic in a certain moment, which is the dominant state of your neurotransmitters that show up with you being a little bit more in fight or flight, a little more focused, a little bit more restless and scattered. Are you sleepy? Are you alert, cognizant? Like, all of that is directly derivative of the biochemical state. And you can start to get an awareness of, is your glucose spiking or is it crashing? Are you a little bit hungry?
Yeah.
So it's interoceptive aware. How in tune are you with your body? And I actually think most of us, just by the nature of our digitally tethered world and our digitally tethered always on lives, it's a really hard thing to tune into that. And the way that I found to tune into it is through things like transcendental meditation, which for those who don't know, it's like a way to basically transcend your normal consciousness and put your brain in like a brainwave state, like theta and delta. That's something in between. Like,
when did you start transcendental meditation?
Sleep and restfulness. I started about 6 months ago. A colleague of mine introduced me to a Stanford professor who coaches, CEOs and founders on the art of transcendental meditation. You know, he's worked with like the Mark, you know, between us, or I guess not between us because now this is live, but
It's on the podcast.
you know, I don't know. It's Dreamforce week here in downtown San Francisco. So everything is Salesforce, and apparently Mark Benioff was a client. I'm sure I think he's on the website maybe, so it's okay for me to say that. But this guy is basically legit. And you know, when I started doing TM with him, he had me like sacrifice all these like rice grains and a banana and stuff to an altar. He taught me a Sanskrit phrase that you repeat. I'm not supposed to tell anyone, so.
That's okay. A mantra. A
Yeah,
secret mantra.
A secret mantra. Exactly. And you repeat it like 500 times for those who aren't aware of the practice. And you do it like 500 times over the course of 10 to 20 minutes. And like you genuinely start like hallucinating, at least for me.
Yeah.
And I think the more I'm like able to be in my body, interoceptively aware, and drop into this like different level of consciousness and like really, really intentionally drop into the experience, the more I literally feel like I am transcending and in a different consciousness. And it's so weird. And I get these like downloads, even just the other day. And then I'll give you back the mic for the next question. But the other day, I got a download during one of my sessions that was literally my future self FaceTiming me. I like thought that I was getting a FaceTime call from my iPhone while I'm in this, you know, hallucinogenic state of altered consciousness. And it was like my future self telling myself, just keep going. Because I was like stressing about the company, and it was like him telling me basically, everything's gonna be all right with Superpower, just keep going. Just keep going. And that was the FaceTime call. And I'm like, wow, that was euphoric and not something I would have realized could even happen during a meditation practice. So that's been a bit of my journey with meditation.
I totally believe in all these things, and what you said about subconscious and your subconscious driving your reality being true is something that I've also been realizing in the past year or so, because one of my recent realizations has been that whatever you deeply, deeply want, like your subconscious want, is what you're going to create in your reality. So if you deeply want chaos, you know, there are some people who, no matter what, there's just always some weird stories that happen to them. Their life is chaotic, it's like unorderly, but they almost drive a sense of worth and attention from telling other people those stories. Or there are some people who, you know, deeply want, like genuinely deeply, deeply want to be super impactful or something like that. And that's actually the reality that drives their life. So I think that the work of recognizing what prompts or pre-prompts drive our subconscious is incredibly powerful. And I've, in my own journey, been trying to figure out, you know, what are those pre-programmed beliefs that were coming out of my childhood, what happened during my more like high school, middle school, college years, and how do you view reality, as you said, in a more neutral way, because then you can program your mind in a way that you want to program it, and you can tap into building or creating whatever is it that you're doing out of love and positive emotions versus out of emotions of lack. So I love that you've been on that journey too. I feel like, as you said, that's why we're on the similar wavelength.
Yes, and there's 4 ways to do it. And you can also get like, I think, caught up in the like hottiness of it, like HAUGHTINESS, not like hottest. Sorry. But you can get caught up in the hubris of like, oh, I'm consciously elevated and like we're better than
I'm
everyone
enlightened,
else.
I'm better. But that's ego speaking.
Exactly, it is. So that's what I'm saying. It's like a spectrum, and like you start to become too conscious, and then like that's the ego will actually push you too far down the conscious
I don't think
spectrum.
it's too conscious. I actually think you're starting to become more of an asshole that comes back to
so
an
it's like
ego.
a midwit curve.
Yeah.
You know,
But I want to still get back to your childhood and your story. So you grew up in Virginia. As far as I remember, your dad was in the military. And then another story that I also remember / kind of brushed up on my memory is the fact that you and your brother were selling Legos. So that's where your entrepreneurial spirit got started.
You know, this is literally not scripted, I promise, but like I had this in my pocket on the topic of Legos.
Well, it's funny also because right before coming to Superpower's office, I went to your place because we were thinking of filming there, and I saw a giant Lego set on your kitchen counter. So I was
that is
oh
true.
wow.
So
Yeah, tell me
fun
more.
story. So believe it or not, Lego's a I think $10 company, maybe bigger, and I think close to 10% of their sales come from adults, like adult fans of Legos. So
I
growing up,
recently bought my first Lego. It was a giant Concorde plane, and me and my boyfriend built the plane, and now it's standing as a statue in the living room, and it was really, really fun
well,
to
we'll
do.
have to compare collections later. I mean, I have close to a metric ton of Legos in my parents' basement back home.
Wow, okay.
In Virginia, yeah. So it's crazy. And that was our first business, was like buying and selling Legos online. And we discovered that there was this entire underground Lego economy where people were buying and reselling bricks. And it got to the point where actually people realized Lego sets, if you bought every new set that was released yearly in mint and sealed box or dead stock where you didn't open it and kept it in a warehouse, the price appreciation of these sets, because collectors wanted them and there's only a limited number, they become a scarce asset, just like a house on the cliffs or gold or Bitcoin. They appreciated tremendously in value. So if you kept one of every set, you'd actually like beat the S&P 500 by like crazy orders of magnitude. So people started exploiting this arbitrage, buying like dozens of every set.
And how old were you
storing them in a
guys when you were
warehouse,
doing this?
having millions of asset values on a balance sheet. We were like 14 and 15.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and we almost actually got shut down by the FBI because
By the FBI?
yeah, there was, or maybe it was our local police department. I don't know. I like to be dramatic and say it was the FBI, but basically we posted an ad being like we were looking for another like 14-year-old boy to help us sort Legos.
Oh man, okay.
And we didn't think anything of it because we were just innocent kids, internet hacking, and we get all these like texts from a random number sending us pictures of 14-year-old kids being like, do you want this one or do you want this one?
Oh wow.
And we realized it was like a sting operation because we showed it to our parents and they're like, yeah, this is definitely the police trying to sting you guys, thinking it was
Yeah, like a pedophile.
pedophile. So yeah, we almost got the Lego operation shut down by the feds, but we shut it. We ended up enlisting another neighborhood kid without the Craigslist ad. So anyway, all that being said, Legos were like a massive part of my life and still are to this day. I don't really have much time to build anymore, but I did just buy Lego's most expensive set ever.
Which is
Star Wars Lego Death Star. So the big circular globe.
Oh, I think that's the one that I saw in your kitchen
Yeah,
counter.
it was, exactly.
How much is it?
I mean, it's like 8,000 pieces. It was over $1,000.
Oh wow.
I pre-ordered it a few months
Balling
ago.
out.
Balling out, exactly. Yeah. But don't worry, no venture dollars were burned in the financing of Jacob's Lego hobby. And at our most recent team retreat, we gave everyone these Lego figures.
Oh my
where
God, that's really cute.
You get
Can
a
I
brick
see?
for every year.
Year
that
1,
you're
year
associated with
2.
the company.
That's
Exactly.
really cute.
And believe it or not, I'm actually coming up on year 3 next week. So not only is it the 5-year anniversary of Launch House, it's also the 3-year anniversary of Superpower.
Okay, so you were building Legos with your brother, then you were arbitraging Legos. So that's where I guess the entrepreneurial spirit came through first.
Yeah, I think when you discover your first arbitrage, it's kind of like, it's this like incredible moment where you realize there's like a giant gap between the current state of the world or your situation or a market and the ideal current state. And even something as like simple as arbs in the Lego market, or like, oh, I can buy this set over here and sell it for 3 times as much over there. Or there's this problem that exists, no one's solving it, and I can solve it, and people give me money to solve it. Like these are arbitrages. Like I guess the fundamental nature of business building is problem solving and arbitrage exploitation, and that's why all growth channels decay over time, or companies have to launch new business lines to inflect TAMs and markets.
Right, reinvent themselves.
It's all just about how long can you exploit the arbitrage for. So yeah, I think when you have your first arbitrage moment, it's something that it's a formative moment in the life of every
What did it teach
entrepreneur.
you once you guys started making money with that arbitrage?
Honestly, my thought was like, people are dumb, in the sense that like they're just basically throwing out these incredibly valuable Lego sets at like garage sales or estate sales or donating to Goodwill, and you could sell them online for like 10 to 100x the price, depending on how rare the figures were of the sets. And it just baffled me that like no one took the time to Google what these things are worth. And now you could say, people are busy and don't really have time or don't know how to sell it, and that's totally fair, and that's why it's the arb, right? Because there's information arbitrage. But I just found it laughable that no one was Googling what this stuff was worth.
So why didn't you guys continue that business?
I think I discovered girls. No, kidding.
Is that what it was?
I think it's more that.
But if you discovered girls, you could have been making more money to impress girls.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all circular. But I think I started falling in love with technology. So I ended up building this thing with my brother where we realized that people on Twitter, and this was back in like, I don't know, 2016.
Wait.
2015.
People on Twitter, that's already past your college years or
Okay,
around
so I
your
guess
college
early
years.
in college years then. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
2014. I don't know. They
Okay.
were basically tweeting their flight confirmation details. So they'd be like, oh, I'm going to spring break in Cabo, and screenshot their flight confirmation email. And little did they realize is that's basically a password, right? So you can go and edit an email, or you can go and edit a travel booking with just a confirmation number and a last name, which is like available from the screenshot. So we went out and like built a Twitter scraper to find anyone just with keywords that had like posted a screenshot of their trip details, and we found like hundreds of these things, and people were just like, dumbfounded that they were allowing internet hackers to be able to edit their trips. And like we emailed some of the airlines, we're like, hey, this is actually a security violation. Someone could go in and change the ticket name, or like, book a rental car on your behalf. Some of the airlines at the time didn't even like have a credit card, extra step to add things onto the booking so you could fuck with people. I mean, it was crazy what you could do with this information. And now, I think booking emails, when I get them to this day, it says like, do not share. This is basically a private, and that didn't even have those caveats, a decade ago. So that was kind of like, I think one of the first digital experiments that made me realize, wow, everything is hackable.
So what did you guys do with that?
We won a hackathon with it.
Okay, so that's how you discovered your love for technology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so discovered your love for technology, and then you have been building communities for a really long time, because then after school you built your first data science community in New York, right?
She's done her homework. I was, I guess, 21 at the time, so 9 years ago, and this is pre-language models, so a bit of a different era, but I accidentally started what eventually became New York City's biggest community of AI and data science professionals at the time.
I like how you're dropping AI, because now AI is the talk of town. Before it was just the data science community.
Yeah, I kid you not, we never said AI.
Now it's AI data science.
This is buzzword, retrospectively, added retrospectively, post facto. And it was just a side project after work. Me and friends from work would get together and read neural net white papers and ConvNet white papers and coffee shops and Starbucks and stuff. And friends of friends started wanting to come. We started a group chat. They didn't even use WhatsApp at the time. And next thing we know, the thing balloons to 9,000 people. We have a meetup.com chapter, an email list. And it just became very clear that managing this thing was kind of challenging. And one of our sponsors was Microsoft of our event space. So, they'd give us $5-10 grand to do pizzas and host events. And as I get talking to the Microsoft leadership, they're basically like, yeah, we have no idea the ROI of this money we're giving you guys. We just hope that it works. And I'm like, that's kind of curious. What if you knew, that this was leading to Microsoft Azure spend? And they're like, yeah, that would be great. So the light bulb started going off that there was basically an opportunity to solve that problem in a really big way. And that's what catalyzed my first ever true business, which was
a startup, not just
a startup, exactly, not just
venture backed,
a real startup. There was an arbitrage. It's like, wow, you guys are throwing a lot of sponsorship dollars around, and you have no idea how it's, conflating with the bottom line. Let's fix that. And my first company, startup, was born. It was called Commsor, and we were building something like Salesforce, but for community and go-to-market teams to help them centralize all of their community data and make smarter decisions as an org. It was marketing intelligence. And it was a system of record, which is like not too dissimilar to, I think, the system of record we're building for the body, the human OS, with Superpower. So there's a lot of parallels. And that company, in my early 20s, started to grow really fast. Quit my job in quick succession. I did a year as a quant on Wall Street, so spent a little time in the financial world.
In the corporate world.
Yeah, in the corporate. I did my time. And it was quite a whirlwind of a few years getting that company off the ground. And when the pandemic hit, which is right around the time, a year before we met at Launch House, the size of our market like 10,000x overnight.
Yeah.
And the company grew exponentially faster, and it's a big company to this day.
So, okay, you had Commsor, then it was Launch House, now it's Superpower. With all of the companies in the current company, you had one or two co-founders. I wanted to talk to you a bit more about co-founder relationships.
I've got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, tell me more about, from all your experience, how do you pick good co-founders? What should you be looking for? What are the traits that are most important? Why did you decide to still build with co-founders now?
A lot to unpack with this question. So not only have I had, I guess, 3 sets of co-founders now across 3 venture-backed businesses in the last decade. Through Launchhouse, which was the early stage incubator we built, and we helped close to 1,000 companies, startups, get off the ground. I think the number one cause of company failure was co-founder disruption or misalignment or differences in vision. I think it's just an incredibly hard thing to do, to bring together a union of like, sentient, autonomous people to work towards a common mission. Like it's a really tough thing to do. And the mistake I think I'd made in the past was jumping at like the first person that like seemed like they would be great to work with on the surface without like really honing my intuition for what is a human being all about. Like, I'll give you an example. My very first like business partner when I started my first company, he was basically like one of the first real like professional entrepreneurs who had raised some venture money before that I'd ever really met. And I was like, we should start a company together. Now beyond even selecting co-founders, like just hiring employees, across a few businesses, have like, hired and fired, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds. We're so diligent and I think honed and refined with our intuition as to what makes a person tick, and you can almost pick up on their IQ and a quick judgment, within the first few minutes. And I think the biggest advice I can give is just like hone that intuitive judgment of just like, how do humans work? How do they tick subconsciously? It's almost like you don't know what you don't know. So you have to like figure out what are the vectors of reality, right? Like what makes a human? What makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur? Like what are the icebergs under their surface? That's like a really tough thing to do with a person unless you've like honed that pattern recognition across a lot of different people and like really become a student of psychology and understand like, how does psychology work? How does the subconscious work? What makes someone high IQ versus not, or high compute, or like high context window or high RAM? What invisible pre-prompts are they running that could either be working for or against them? Like, what are their superpowers? Have I met enough people in my life to know when someone is like truly 3 Sigma in a certain skill set or category? How does that compare to me? Do I even know myself enough to be able to understand if there's a complement here? And I never like knew any of that stuff in a prior world. I think I just jumped the gun. But you do have to start somewhere. And admittedly, I probably wouldn't be where I am right now if I hadn't just thrown myself in the deep end and started making shit happen. Even if maybe I have different degrees of strength of partnerships now versus in prior startups.
Yeah, so that I agree with you that you gotta pattern match and you gotta have good intuition for who people are. That all sounds great in theory, and it sounds great to really get to know yourself, to really be great about reading people, to really be great about having an intuition for who they are. But what would your tactical advice be for how to really recognize whether you work well together with a given person or not, and what are the motivations that drive them?
It actually goes back to this idea of interoceptive awareness, which is like become aware of the feeling in your body.
How do you become aware of the feeling in your body?
Well, I think first you have to recognize that there are factors working against the ability to tap into that. And a lot of those factors are, again, like the digital tethering and things. So if you like spend a day without your phone and you set this intention of like, I'm just going to be like really in tune with my body. And you try closing your eyes and sitting down and not really thinking any thoughts or even meditating or whatever, however form of meditation you want to try like during that day, and just set the intention of like, I'm going to pay attention to like the tiniest little twitch of my eyebrow or the feeling of the hair on the top of my head. Like you can start to hone it and reclaim it. It's just a muscle, right? It's an awareness muscle to reclaim. And I think if you start to develop that, you can actually pay attention to how other human beings make you feel. And I think there's like a true like biochemical wisdom in being able to understand how does like someone's presence and energy make me feel in my own body as I'm interacting with them. And admittedly, like other business partners or romantic partners or things that people I've done deals with or, founders I've invested in through the venture fund that maybe didn't work out the way I thought. I like remember feeling certain things in my body, and my rational mind was like, ignore that, trust the data in front of you. But I actually think that's really crucial data, because we're using our subconscious basically and our biochemical intelligence to understand real data points. It's not woo-woo. This is all just trying to look at the constellation of
now
data
there's
points
a lot
that
more
exist.
research about listening to your gut.
It's an antenna, right? It's an antenna that the gut is. So I think becoming in tune with your body and using that as a way to evaluate, am I going to work well with this person? Like, do I just feel good in my gut when I interact with them? Or is there something weird? Or is there something like subconscious for me coming up, or insecure, where I can't feel like I can operate as my best self around them? Like, I don't know. So pay attention to that is maybe what I would say. And I think the people that I work with now, I trusted that gut intelligence when I was in that interoceptive awareness, when I was deciding to work with them or bringing them onto the team. And the ones that I felt a little funny, I didn't. And this can even apply to other decisions like paid ads as an example. We're starting to do a significant amount of marketing and putting marketing budget behind creative assets. And if I was given a swath of a few dozen assets, we basically decided we're going to listen to how we feel and just like run the ad that just feels good. When we look at it, it's like what's creating emotion in you. I even think about this when I write cold emails. I try to sit down and like read an email that I just wrote like a dozen times and like try to pay attention. Am I feeling the slightest emotional like twinge or prick or feeling when I read this? And if I don't, then I edit the email to try to get an emotional response, because I think the only way you get in touch with someone when they have a cacophonous inbox is to muster up an emotion in them. So this feeling can apply way more broadly than just co-founder selection. It can apply to, I think, your marketing. It maybe even is like a way to help be more tasteful. And taste is the big hot buzzword now on Twitter, on X.
Yeah, I think now a really buzzy way to describe it is vibes. Like, what are the vibes?
Yeah.
What's the vibe? What's the vibe?
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
We can talk here about frameworks and put on a big matrix, like what are the factors that I want to consider to work with someone. At the end of the day, it's like maybe the vibe is the ultimate indicator.
Yeah. How do you teach people on your team to listen to what the vibe is and to tune into their higher intelligence, to the energetic field around them?
Yeah.
I'm sure, now the team is how many people?
Close to 40.
Okay, yeah, everyone is different. Not everyone is as enlightened and as much on a transcendental meditation track.
And I still don't want to come off as like some like enlightened guru. Like, fuck that.
I'm just kidding. But how do you get people to get into this mindset? Because I think now in the Valley, it's a lot more accepted and a lot more kind of driven home that, hey, this is a reality that we should be paying attention to. Gut feelings are super important. Vibes are super important. And I love that trend is happening, but not everyone is on that track. And yeah, what's the tactical way to get your employees
you have to
on board?
give people a language for it. So if you don't know what interoceptive awareness is, you're never going to be able to set an intention around developing it. So like you have to have a language for it. If you don't know what testosterone or estrogen are, like what we help you understand with Superpower, you don't know what it's like to like feel hormonally dead, or flat.
So it's about you bringing the awareness to this terminology.
I think so. And the way we've done that is, like at our last team retreat, my co-founder and I, we did a talk on the strategy of the business and the roadmap and like what we believe to be true in the limit of this market that we're operating in. And how that, if you put it on a pyramid, is like the tippy top of where we're going, but that is built on an understanding of the industry dynamics and the business model, levers and degrees of freedom, which is built on top of like our long-term roadmap, which is built on top of like our midterm roadmap, which is built on top of like our short-term tactical decisions, which is built on top of like our operating principles and culture. And then at the bottom of the pyramid, I did a talk about how it's actually built on top of our individual consciousness. So you can actually tie your individual consciousness as a human, right? How aware are you of the way you're showing up, the way your body is performing, to interpret reality and navigate reality. You can tie that all the way back to like the future vision of your company and where our market's going to be in 10 years. And it's just a pyramid stack, right? All these things have to build on one another, because you could have the end state vision so clear in your head, but if you are not biochemically, energetically, and subconsciously and consciously tuned at the bottom of the pyramid as an individual, and then all the 40 individuals in your team are not similarly tuned, they're not going to make the right decisions to implement the right roadmap to then eventually get there. So you have to just have, I think, awareness across the stack, not just awareness of your body and mind and what's happening in those pre-prompts. You have to have awareness of like just everything end to end as you're building a company. So we just wanted to give people a language and a framework for this. So we did a talk on individual consciousness as actually the bedrock for performance and mission achievement at Superpower.
So speaking of performance and mission achievements, you guys have a super cracked, dedicated, loyal team. One, you've attracted a lot of incredible talent. Two, one of your employees or maybe multiple employees got a tattoo with Superpower.
We were three tattoos.
Three tattoos.
And counting, yeah. I might be 4. We'll see.
Wait, how come you don't have a tattoo yet?
Well, it's
Are you anti-tattoo?
Well, here's the thing. I feel like there's a lot we don't know yet about
tattoos.
Tattoos, yeah, because they've done some autopsies. I've seen some reports where they've done autopsies of like very heavily tatted individuals, and
Oh, wow.
they find ink pigmentation in the lymph nodes.
Damn.
So I think it's actually a really tough thing for the body to detox, and it's unknown whether that's good or bad. My first principles gut instinct tells me it's kind of bad,
Okay.
And a lot of tattoo inks have heavy metals and other additives, which can be problematic for the body. So it can they can be bad for the body. So I just don't know. I think the scientific jury is still out on how bad tattoos are. So I'm not against it from any sort of like weird social signaling reason. I look at everything through the lens of health. I think every decision for me is a health decision or a healthcare decision in a sort of way.
Okay, but back to your cracked team.
And back to the cracked team. So 3 tattoos, 42 signatures of the blood oath.
What?
The Superpower.
Okay, actually, I saw
blood
this
oath.
on Twitter, on
You
X.
saw this on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, it might have been on X. I haven't posted it yet, but maybe this will be inspiration to do so. So I took a red ink pad and a box of lancets and placed them out in front of
what?
a paper
Okay.
with the whole team when we were getting together last time we were all in person. And I said, this is the mission. And we had a big white poster board with the mission wrote on it, which is to like fundamentally change the trajectory of human health and build the world's best consumer health experience. And I said, the official company policy is to use the ink pad. You can thumbprint it and put it on the board and then sign your name. But I'm just going to leave this box of finger prick lancets here. And then I went and stabbed myself and full on thumbprinted the board. And a lot of the team like knew this was coming because the rumors started to swirl. 15 people had actually done this before at a prior team gathering, kind of as a fun meme. And a few folks like where they just did not see this coming, who were a bit newer to the team, were like totally flabbergasted. So it was a range of reactions, but believe it or not, we had 100% participation, like 43 out of 43 thumbprints, real dried blood on the board. I think everyone was probably Hep C vaccinated, so I think we're
Okay, so that sounds cool, but what's the attrition of the company has been outside of people that maybe you have let go of? Attrition.
Oh, attrition.
Like,
we've actually had huge volatility, and that's very intentional.
Tell me more.
So I think volatility is a feature, not a bug.
Volatility meaning people moving on, or?
Yeah, people moving on, people no longer being here, and that's a feature, not a bug, because I think the best companies actually have a very large amount of attrition in the first 100 hires or the first few
But was it
days.
attrition that you guys have let go of people or people left intentionally?
A bit of both, but the folks who left intentionally, it was, by and large, they self-selected as a cultural mismatch. And we are, I think, a culture that, at least the core team, is pretty much working
996?
987 probably,
987?
Yeah, 997, something like that. There's a few folks with kids, and we can.
So no kids at Superpower.
Yeah. I don't have kids yet, but it's a team of really respectable entrepreneurial people. So I think we have close to like 15 former venture-backed founders who have worn the scars and knows what it takes to build something really, really great. And these folks have really high opportunity cost where they could otherwise go start, seed funded AI company really handily in this market, or do something on their own that could earn significantly more than the salary, but they believe in the mission, they believe in the enterprise value that we can create together, and they want to work with similarly talented people. It's a beautiful domino effect where talent begets talent begets talent.
So tell me more about how you've built up this cult mission-driven following internally at the company, as you've been so good about attracting talent. And I get what you're saying about volatility being a feature, because it sounds like your culture is just so defined and you're looking for a specific mindset of a person. And yes, probably grind and commitment and dedication and 987 is one of the potential requirements, and if you're not down, you're not down, so that's totally fair. But yeah, how did you do that? Is it storytelling? Is it belief in your own vision? Is it specific tactics?
I mean, it's all those things, obviously, but if I had to deduce it to, the better way to think about this is that it's actually a cold start problem. Meaning, I think one of the ways that you get really talented people to want to work together and then continue to accumulate more talented people and get that compounding advantage is you have to get the first domino to fall, right? When we were building Launch House, we were really intentional to make sure that the first entrepreneurs that were coming through the community were great, right? We were very intentional with that, and it set the standard for everyone else that wanted to be a part of the community. If Y Combinator hadn't had a handful of veritable unicorn companies in the first few batches, it wouldn't have, this stuff matters, right? So you have to solve the cold start problem. So I actually think the number, all the other things matter, and that's definitely what's contributed to this, but I think the number one thing to focus on is just solving that cold start problem and getting the first few. And I think it just takes an extraordinary amount of hustle, intention, and a great deal of empowerment that you can promise them, which is sometimes tough, right? I think it can be hard to go into founder mode when everybody's mega empowered. But the reality is, if you can create a culture of empowerment, everyone kind of starts to feel like an owner, and go into a lightweight founder mode, if you will.
So tell me about the first few. Who were those first few that defined the culture, and how did you make them empowered? What did they do exactly?
Yeah, so my co-founder Kevin was Y Combinator batchmates with a handful of technical founders who'd raised a big seed round, but never actually ended up getting commercialization on their open source project.
And I believe you met Kevin through Launch House.
I did
was
meet
at
Kevin
Launch
through
House.
Launch House. Yeah, shout out Launch House. And Kevin was probably the best technical founder to come through the community, no hyperbole. And these guys were really cracked. Kevin was the first ones I call anytime I have, an infrastructure problem or question. So they're really, really, really good. And I just remember the degree to which we had to hustle to get them across the line. I mean, I was talking to wives and families and flying all over the country to make this happen, and pulling every backdoor reference. And
for Kevin or for?
Oh no, for the engineers that we wanted to acquire.
Oh,
sorry,
got it.
I want to edit this in.
Yeah,
so basically, the batchmates, their company was winding down because they never found product market fit, and they were gonna go get jobs or start a new company, and I was we need to go bring them. So we basically got a nucleus of talent, which set the talent bar. It's really, really high. And it just took an incredible amount of hustle. I mean, a lot of, flights and talking to wives and families and making
So there are people at Superpower with wives and families.
Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, it takes going the extra mile. I mean, for one, I literally wrote a 8-page Notion document, just a love letter, basically,
to get that talent.
Yeah.
To get those first few engineers.
Truly, I mean, some of these emails that we will send to people, it's insane, and I think it's a lesson I've learned. Just like I keep learning the power of the subconscious and how much subconscious programming and invisible, pre-prompts run our lives. The degree to which you can recruit harder than you ever thought possible, you can recruit better than you think you can. You really, really can. So that was a lesson that I learned, and I had never flexed this degree of muscle. And I think to flex that, you really have to be delusional with your belief. And that's another one, actually, is the spectrum of self-delusion. You don't want to get so delusional that you're untethered from business fundamentals, that you can never make anything a reality, or you sound delusional. But there's this perfect line where if you're delusional enough and you apply that to your own self-belief, and the inner pre-prompt that says I can do this before you go to a situation, you show up differently in conversations with really talented people who have high opportunity costs. And like, I don't know, I do think life is a game of inches. And just like, you know, a race winner can make or break, you know, a record just through, if they did a certain amount of training, like it all compounds, but then the ultimate result is a game of inches. If someone's on the fence of a decision, like sometimes it is just the way you guided them to that, which is a result of a little bit better internal programming, which is a result of like a little bit better mastery of your biology, and then all those things together compound, and all of a sudden you said the right thing, and it put the light bulb in their head, and now you put them on a totally different reality path and interpretation of what the possibility could be if you work together. So like, that's kind of how I think about how this kind of stuff can come together.
Tell me more about where your delusion comes from.
Where's my delusion come from? I think originally it actually came from a dissociative protection mechanism. Where, like,
Elaborate.
Like I love my mom. She's incredible. Shout out Mama P. But like she knows this.
Shout out Mama P.
Yeah, but
if you're watching.
Yeah, she actually knows Luba. Funny enough.
Actually, that's true. I think she does know me.
Yeah, she's like, I watched all of her.
Oh, yes,
videos.
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, shout out.
We've done an interview before, and she's like, I watched her video, so she'll probably see this. But like, and she knows this. You know, she likes to yell and, you know, have her bit.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, when you're dealing with parents that are, you know, kind of getting on your ass about too much, in retrospect, you know, dumb stuff that you're doing, you can start to kind of like dissociate. I think for whatever reason, like my maybe earlier childhood programming or biochemical makeup made me extremely susceptible to that. Mm-hmm. So the protection mechanisms were like became deeply entrenched and like really, really powerful. And one of those protection mechanisms was like total dissociation, where I just like would kind of forget and ignore and tune out, and it allowed me to like almost like create my own world. And the benefit of that is you can start to, I think when you can create your own world in your mind, like it's like a great bedrock for dreaming big and developing delusion. And sometimes it can be a bug because you think something's possible when it's really not, and you're missing data. And you can be too positive or overly positive or toxically positive, which is a problem for me sometimes. But it can also make you, and maybe you edit this part because I sound a little funky, but it can also be a helpful delusion that can make you take bigger swings and bigger risks than you'd otherwise be comfortable with, or say things to candidates that otherwise might scare you if they're a risky hire.
To translate or to repeat that back to you, you grew up in a family where if something went wrong or you were misbehaving, your parents would reprimand you and potentially yell at you, and that created a dissociative coping mechanism for you to deal with those situations.
Look, we'll never really know. This is like, again, this is the result of my own introspection. I think there's 4 ways you can like deeply introspect and change patterns in programming behavior. One, which is what we were sort of talking about, is just becoming self-reflective, journaling, taking time with yourself, removing the digital tethering, and just being alone with your thoughts. That can only get you so far. You know, that's a conversation with yourself. Then 2 is developing the frameworks, the canon, and the phrases for things, which helps, I think, foster understanding. Read all the canonical books, the podcasts, you know, just understand how the brain basically works. Like, how does your program even work? 3rd is like facilitated talk therapy, CBT, family system, interfamily systems. I've done a handful of this, executive coaching, right? Getting mentorship, talking to people, and like aggressively seeking out self-improvement. And I think the 4th is the most underutilized, but the most powerful by far, which is trauma. And trauma, I think societally has a very negative connotation, but if you actually look at the dictionary definition, it's a bit more neutral. And it just means like a very deep psychological imprint. That could be negative, neutral, or positive. So how do you create intense trauma to make the brain go, hold up? We got to find a different way of operating in order to keep moving forward. And I think can happen in a really like random and stochastic way, like psychedelic plant medicine, which I've experimented with, as has like half of Silicon Valley, you know. You know, people are doing ketamine therapy and things, but it's random. You can maybe go in with an intention, but like you're not going to know what, you know, the psilocybin or whatever is what path it's going to take you. It's so random, and you might come up with great conclusions because you're connecting to the different parts of the subconscious, but it's still so random. Then there's architected trauma, which, like positive trauma, which you can do through these facilitated sessions. There's like a few of these programs like Hoffman and ALA and a handful of these things that
Right,
I have
you've recently
done.
been to one.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of my friends that have like say this is the most transformative thing they've ever done, and it effectively helps you confront these things, and it puts you in a lot of like relaxed brain states that you wouldn't normally be in, like a lot of group hugging and things that sounds kind of woo-woo, but like it does change your biochemical state and makes you really able to look inward in a way you're not otherwise able to do. So those are the 4 ways, and I think everyone should. I think it's really powerful if you want to be the best version of yourself and the most aware version of yourself and be able to show up powerfully for a team or for the best candidates that you want to recruit.
Back to the candidates.
Exactly, or be able to like thread the needle all the way through from like end state of your vision all the way through to like the way you're showing up day to day and everything in between. Make the best decisions, because the startup's all just a million decisions. You have to get the full mastery of what's happening under the hood, and those are like 4 frameworks I've found work.
Where do you think you got your desire to dream big, to take big swings? Because it's not really recent that you've been, training your mind and telling yourself a different story. I've known you for 5 years, and you've always been like this since I've known you, and I'm sure that's been the case before that too. I'm curious if you remember the first time when you were like, oh, what if?
It was less the first time and more like I almost started listening to my body. Like, it's so weird, but like there was just this, I wish I could tell you the pinpointed moment, but it's almost like there was this deep knowing in me for a very long time that something was incongruent. Like a feeling in my stomach. I was in high school and I never really felt like I fit in that much, and I like just kind of hated the being in the high school clique and stuff. It's why I like found more passion in Legos. Same thing in university. I like hated I was in the fraternity, but I also secretly hated it. When I was 21, I moved to New York. I was doing the thing that everyone was doing, which was like working in finance, and like I hated it. And I just felt like this feeling in my body that something wasn't right. Like the way I was living my life, the decisions I was making, the people I was spending time with, it just didn't feel right. I like didn't feel healthy. I didn't feel aligned, if you will. Something was off biochemically. And it wasn't until I met my first original co-founder, my first business, that like I realized, oh, whoa, there's a whole world of entrepreneurs out there. Like I didn't grow up on Twitter or, in tech Twitter. I was on, flight code hacking Twitter. But I just didn't really have a great like set of role models, or I just didn't have, I think, the right people pushing me towards this stuff. So all I felt was like confused incongruence. And it was finally when I discovered the real startup world and the New York startup community during my first company and met my first co-founder that I was like, whoa, I finally feel aligned in my body for like the very first time. And I felt alive. And I think it was that moment that I realized, okay, now that I'm like congruent and I've like found my people, I've found something I enjoy, it literally gives me biochemical joy. Like I don't feel sick and confused and uncertain. I feel great. Let's lean into that. And I think the more I leaned into that, the greater the desire to want to learn about every aspect of reality and life and myself and others and human and consciousness evolved. And it's only grown.
On this note, do you believe that people are predestined to do a certain thing? Because from what you're saying, it sounds like your body kind of knew which environments it felt best in. And when you found your crew, when you stepped into entrepreneurship, you felt more alive.
Yes and no. I think that's like a woo-woo narrative way to think about it, predestined. Because if we had a thought exercise, if you had a quantum computer that could hold the particulate state of like every piece of matter in the universe, you could perfectly predict everyone's trajectories, which like in that example, free will does not exist. So if that's the case, then like everything's actually perfectly modelable, which means you could explain it. So it's like, what are those explainability factors? Or if it's a million little things and it could be a butterfly flapping its wings. What are like the most sensitive variables, right? And I actually have a framework on this. So let me pull that up. I want to pull it up. Why is it not loading? This is really good. I want to pull this up. This is important. I have this framework for what makes somebody deeply prolific. Oh, it's your physical environment. So like, in my case, when I was going through my whole health journey, I had a mercury level at one point of like 34. And I didn't realize how badly that was zapping my energy and my like ability to show up. And you literally lose like a standard deviation of IQ points when your body, which has a limited set of soldiers in its immune system army, are like stuck, sequestered, dealing with this toxic stuff that's not supposed to be in the body. So I think we're like deeply affected by this physical environment way more than we know. And the deeper I go in the interconnectedness of the body and like frontier science and functional medicine, the more I see how things like even the chemicals and the nutrients or lack of nutrients or like nutrient levels you're exposed to in pregnancy can affect permanently like the way your brain wiring shows up. Like it's so correlated.
Isn't there a lot of research now that even natural versus C-section birth and what were the things in literally like your mom's vagina could affect your IQ and your immune system?
Completely. So if you think about that, it's like, okay, we know that. And we've also heard things about like the mother's oral microbiome, which can affect, the baby. And you can use that to predict things like preterm births and all this stuff. So, and again, if we go back to the quantum computer analogy of like it being able to perfectly predict how your life ends up if it knows every variable, and how you can do the same thing with health. So it's like everything's so perfectly predictable. So if you wanted to like model the highest IQ, most prolific individual, you'd want to fine tune every single aspect of like their human existence from like the moment the sperm and the egg met. Every input, every single one. So if you had to cut it down into 8, it's like this physical environment, how that affects you. A lot of it's from birth. It's your, I guess, like, subconscious programming. And this physical environment affects like epigenetics and a lot of stuff. It's your programming. Like what were the things that, the invisible pre-prompts that, either told you could or you couldn't do certain things or gave you a certain level of self-belief or a chip on your shoulder or whatnot. And it's like your early social circle and network. Like who were the people around you? Were you surrounded with other folks who had, unique amounts of knowledge and access, or were you not? And all this stuff like makes sense mathematically, right? Because if you are around smarter, more ambitious people, you're going to do smarter, more ambitious things sooner. Your knowledge accumulation, which is another, like, did you start, in my case, I'm probably, a little behind some of my founder friends who are a little bit younger than me, because like I feel like I didn't really start feeding my mind the right stuff until I was 20. So it's been a decade, and I'm like, wow. What if I
think you've been doing pretty well for just being a decade.
Yeah, but like you gotta always wonder what if, right? If you're really seeking greatness. So, like, what knowledge did you put in your brain? The other is leverage. Like, how much leverage did you have in your life? Because time is just obviously our only currency. So, did you do things that gave you leverage? Did you come into leverage? Did you somehow accumulate leverage? Compounding is the other. Did you determine, which maybe is similar to leverage in a way, but I think different. It's more like leverage is like more output for less input, or the same amount of input or less input, and compounding is like do you take advantage of the fact that things can grow non-linearly, and there's probably a few more if I can pull this up. But I just think if we start to break down like what makes someone really prolific, it's probably some combination of those things. And then the last is actually genetic. I forgot to mention, which is like, it's just a reality that even if you have the perfect environment, you're perfectly epigenetically fine-tuned, you had the perfect programming, you still just might not have the raw biological meat computer compute to be able to tackle tough problems or do high dimensional, like, spatial visualizations of what a future product vision could be. Like, not everyone has that ability. We all sort of exist on a spectrum of, what our brain is able to do. So, yeah.
On that note, why are you seeking greatness?
Why am I seeking
What's your
greatness?
motivator?
Well, again, I'd be lying if I said it was like, perfect 100% mission driven. I don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
I think the ego is a good thing, and it is very powerful, and it helps us propagate the genome, right? But I try to like stay calibrated such that it's like slightly less ego and slightly more mission impact and like genuinely changing humanity. And for me, you can read about my health story online if you want, but the TLDR of it, because I've talked about it on so many of these things now, was 3.5 years ago, I almost lost my life and ended up getting hospitalized for many months, surgeries, multi-million-dollar bill, unnecessary, by the way, completely unnecessary. I was a very lucrative billing opportunity for the mainstream American healthcare system, which, by the way, is neither health nor care. So it's a bit of a meme. And I saw what I would never want any other human to see and experience, which is like to be faced with your mortality. And now, like, I literally genuinely, Luba, get viscerally sick when I'm walking down the street, or like even spending time with my co-workers, and I just see them doing things that are like obviously detrimental to their health, and they just are none the wiser. And ignorance can be bliss. You don't want to have an over-optimization neurosis and be worried about every little microplastic. It's just there's a net to it. You can have too much awareness to where it actually starts to cause biochemical cascades of cortisol and too much stress, and you're not living as free. But I think too many of us in America and the world just have no idea what's happening under the hood. And when I'm on a street corner, I see people with like obviously fatty liver, messed up, cortisol face, messed up hormones, probably estrogen dominant, high toxin. You can just, thinning hair, like all this stuff is really, really emblematic of underlying mitochondrial dysfunction and organ systems going awry. And even hair that's like not as, thick and refined as, you can tell it's just nutrient deficiencies, in a lot of ways. The hair's just like starving for nutrients. So you can just start to develop not just a interoceptive awareness of yourself, but a biological awareness of like the state of the human condition and how healthy someone is just by proxy of looking at them. And I think the really great functional doctors do this. And I've like to think I've started to develop that, but it just makes me viscerally ill when I see it. And I'm like, oh, I wish everyone's just like perfectly healthy and we didn't have to all be so blind to what's happening. And we could all live longer, feel better, show up better for our families, be aligned, have as many of those 8 boxes of what makes someone prolific checked as possible so that the world can have more innovation and more things. And like, that's what drives me. And I really feel when I talk about this, I feel it. Like it gives me energy like nothing else. So that is what I try to operate from, versus ego, which is totally there and useful. But I try to make this a little bit more dominant most of the time.
Yeah, and I feel your drive for it too. And I mean, I remember how you were going through the health crisis.
I never want anyone to end up like me. Never. And I wouldn't wish it on I wouldn't wish it on any of our competitors, my worst enemy. It's terrible.
Yeah, I know that a lot of it is covered, as you said, online, on X. There were a lot of, you've covered it yourself, what exactly has happened, so I'm not going to go there. When you were going through it, what I was most impressed with is your positivity around it. You were just so resilient. You went through multiple surgeries. I think you got your large intestine taken out. And again, don't want anyone to go through it. Sounds terrible. How did you stay so positive? What was going on through your mind?
Well, I basically told myself if I ever get out of here, I'm going to start a company to fix this shit because, seeing, I don't know, like the literally Windows 99, type computers and EMRs next to me and all the beeping and like, it was just the worst user experience possible. I'm a technologist.
Back to the user experience.
So I think in terms of user experiences and like every single thing from like literally the moment of ER intake all the way through to like, the surgery discharge, like there was like genuinely not, I think our healthcare service workers are amazing. They're doing the best they can, but like the system, and it's a tough industry. I'm not saying it's not. In the world of atoms and complications and unlimited number of degrees of freedom of things that can go wrong in a hospital setting, I get it. I know why it's tough to do. But the end-to-end user experience was just horrible relative to what I'm used to, which is delight.
But a regular person wouldn't be thinking about the end-to-end user experience being on a hospital deathbed.
Yeah. So for me, I was like, if I ever get out of here, I'm going to fix this shit. And like, The company was basically, it took a year to really get it off the ground, but or to really start things, a year and a half from that moment. But I told myself, if I ever get out of here, I'm gonna fix it.
But were there any tactics or specific tools that you were using to not drop into the victim mentality of why is this happening to me while it was happening to you, company aside?
Honestly, it was kind of innate. It was like innate that I was positive. And here's the thing, if anyone's curious how they can make it innate, if that's not how you default operate, go back to those 8 factors that I mentioned and like figure out where are the levers, because everything's explainable, right? Again, if we had a quantum computer that could hold the particulate state of every piece of matter in the universe, like everyone's health trajectories and life trajectories would be perfectly modelable and predictable. So everything has an explanation. We just don't know everything about how to tap into that yet. We're not masters of every neural connection or every, chemical interaction yet. AGI will hopefully help us. So figure out what are the things that led to you maybe not being as default positive. Do you want to be default positive? Is that like a pre-prompt you want to inject in your personal language model? Is it, are there others you have to remove? Like, I don't know. So I would just go back into your life and your programming and the whole set of what's made your current state of consciousness and biology and figure out what can I do to increase the positivity.
I want to chat a bit about Inception of Superpower. I remember being probably an alpha or pre-alpha user.
You're one of our first 10 customers.
Oh, well, are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm honored. Always. So I remember getting the blood draw, and there was a doctor concierge, and I've always really been into preventative healthcare. So I remember like 10 years ago, there was this glucose drink that you could take to monitor your glucose levels. There was a company. Then there was a company that would create your custom diet based on also some parameters in your bloodstream. So when you started working on that, one, I was super excited because obviously you got out of the hospital and it made perfect sense that this was the next evolution of your dream and vision. 2, it was just like a really dope idea to get your blood work and get doctor's opinion about what you needed to fix, if there was anything. And 3, I loved the personalization of it. But you were working on it for about a year, I believe, before you met your co-founders. How did that happen?
Yeah. So, the genesis was after I finally got out of the hospital and went on this big healing journey, I got connected to, after my story went viral on Twitter about the health experience I had, I got connected to some of the world's best high-end concierge doctors. So physicians who charge $50,000 to a few $100,000 a year. They test everything in your body. They spend hours with you on a whiteboard connecting the dots on all the mechanisms and environmental things that happen. Basically, the best version today of this quantum computer thought exercise. And I saw what real medicine was like. That when you get outside of the insurance system and you have a doctor who's incentive aligned with you because you're paying him a ton of money, they are, and these are doctors with like much bigger context windows and understanding of how everything interconnects, versus myopic specialty medicine. I saw what healthcare could look like. And it just became very obvious that that is something that needed to be democratized for all. So not only did I have a keen awareness of the problem from my own situation, I now had a interesting example of the future, or of the solution, a classic arbitrage to take us back, right? There's a big gap between the state of American healthcare and what I and everyone else is subjected to if they stay on the sick trajectory versus what, if you have money and you're in the know, you can access. And I think as long as that gap exists, or existed, I thought there is a possibility that or an inevitability rather, that a technology company will emerge to close that gap and make it as democratized and accessible as possible. So that was how the company was really born. Beyond out of my frustration, it was really that was the real arbitrage identification point where the inspiration was lit. And I then realized, okay, if we're going to tackle something this big and ambitious, we're going to need some of the best people in the world. So I had to go and source Kevin, the best technical founder at Launch House, Max, my other co-founder, who is brilliant. And I'd met tens of thousands of founders through Launch House.
What was the story of meeting Max?
Well, I got connected to him under the auspice of, you're the 2 most health-obsessed humans I'd ever met. He had his own version of this health story and journey. And we had like a sprawling 3-hour-long conversation about reinventing the healthcare
So he was building
system.
something very similar.
Yeah, he actually was building the same company, competitive. We didn't even really know it at the time. in Australia, and we decided to merge and join forces. And I'd met tens of thousands of founders in Launch House and otherwise.
How did you convince each other that you should merge forces?
Yeah, well, I thought he was like basically one of the most brilliant founders I'd ever met across a big data set. So, and that was my intuition talking. So I was like, okay, I want to work with this guy. This is cool. And now I spent a little time earlier, I guess we talked about how you have to go and hustle and do the extra mile to recruit some people. And I think that's true when there's a lot of like, inertia sometimes, or like real consequences and trade-offs and considerations and life complexities. But sometimes it's just so effortless, and that's beautiful. And that's sort of how it was with Max and I. We realized there was just an effortlessness to the dynamic and the shared vision and the camaraderie and the complementary nature of our skill sets. And it was almost like the universe had felt ordained in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. Like giving us one another to try and go fix this brokenness. So it was very fluid and easy, which is different than some of the hardcore recruiting I had to do or I've otherwise done in the past. And I think there's a beauty to that when things just like really, really energetically and rationally click.
On the energetic and the rational, I want to talk a bit about your personal mission statement and personal values. Right before I came to the office, again, I was at your apartment because we were thinking of filming there, and I was scouting where to film, went to your bedroom to see if there's any furniture there, and you had 4 or 5 printed out pages of your personal values and your personal mission statement. Tell me more about why you have it on your wall, right next to your bed. I have some hunches as to why, but I want to hear from you, and what are the values? And
yeah, I mean, just like a company needs values, I think a person needs values. I think a relationship needs values. They're just these amazing anchors and tools to navigate reality because it's so complex. And I don't know, for me, they're just like anchor points that I found to help center me and get the best outcomes and performance.
Do you reread them every day? Is that why they're on the wall?
Yeah, when I wake up, I like kind of sleep on my right side, so I wake up and then they're like right there.
But wait, your bed is like maybe 3 feet away from the values, and the font is not a 20 or a 30.
Well,
a 12.
I see the titles. I have good eyesight. Hey, I take my
I have good
luteal
eyesight too.
and astaxanthin supplements, for eye health. You can get them on Superpower.
I don't take any supplements, but I have good eyesight.
Yeah.
Maybe I should start taking them to keep up the eyesight.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want glasses here. No glasses on this.
No glasses at Superpower.
Except blue light blocking glasses. Yeah. Anyway, side note, I think it's crazy that like 500 years ago, before the invention of glasses, people would just like go blind.
Be blind.
And like live 30, 40 years
That's
as
actually
blind.
true.
That's insane. Anyway.
They wouldn't live 30, 40 years blind because the expectancy was like 30, 40 years.
But still, it's mind-boggling to me. Anyway, because it's just such a trivial, solvable problem. God bless modernity. So, yeah, I stand up, I reread them, so I do have to get a little closer to read the fine print. And number one is just health first. It's first and foremost. If I don't have energetic capacity, I can't do anything. Community first. I've started community businesses. I love bringing people together. I love galvanizing folks around a mission and telling a story. It gives me a lot of meaning, and I just find life is better when shared. And when I'm not in that and I'm a little too lone wolf solo, I get kind of depressed. Congruence is another. So like, am I finding deep alignment between what I say and what I feel? I think it's very easy to get cognitively dissonant. Or how detached am I from reality? Like, am I more focused in reality or rhetoric? Is there an incongruence between what I'm saying and the real nature? Every entrepreneur has to like hype things up a little bit, but where's that line?
You're really good at that.
Yeah. Well, it's the best when it's authentic hype, right? But like, where's the line? Like, where's the line? Where's the line? And I'm trying to think of the others.
I think there was love.
Spacing. Yeah, love. It's like, again, if we think about, there's this framework of like the map of consciousness, which is just how emotional states or like mental states or energetic states map to different verbs. Love's a verb, I think.
It's a verb and a noun.
And a noun, yeah. But I think in this case it's a verb. because you're like loving.
Actively to love, yeah.
Yeah, actively to love. So I think the higher you are out of fear of judgment and failure, and the more you're in, I think, congruence with, just reality itself and experiencing things as they are versus telling a story or a pre-prompt, you can be more in love. And I think that shows up, and it doesn't mean be all mushy and gooey. I actually think I have to show up hardcore as fuck to make this company happen. But I actually think that is love in a sense, right? If you're just saying authentically, rationally, sternly, directly the thing that needs to be said or needs to be done, I think love can actually be an undertone of that type of operating mentality. So that is why love is one of the values. And the last, which is my personal favorite, is Luba. Guess what? Do you remember what it is?
I didn't actually,
Oh, okay.
I didn't infringe
Okay.
on your privacy.
That's okay. You could have. It's fine. It's believe in magic.
Oh yeah, I did see it, yeah.
Believe in magic. So, again, if we go back to the example, and I love that this convo has brought us able to connect all the dots across everything we've spoken about. If we go back to the idea of the quantum computer is able to perfectly predict, if it had all the data points of everything in the universe and perfectly predict health trajectories, personal trajectories, actions, therefore there's no free will. That's kind of like, I don't know, just reductionist and cold and mathematical and pragmatic, and kind of kills the fun in life in some ways. So I actually choose to, even though I can keep that mentality in my head, I sometimes like to just operate at a different level of abstraction, which is fuck all of that. Let me just live in this moment and like appreciate how absurd this existence is and feel like it's, magic, and that life is conspiring in my favor, and that everything is happening as it should, and synchronicities are not coincidental. They're, destined. Maybe there's a higher power. I don't know. But I think it's actually beautiful to have the ability to think in both minds, which is both the cold, rational, direct, pragmatic, perfectly data-driven and predictable world versus a little bit more hand-wavy, spiritual side of existence. And that is why I choose to often believe in magic.
Yeah, I love that. And I love it. It speaks to the duality of human being and consciousness. I think two can totally exist. And if the world was just cold and pragmatic, it wouldn't be as fun. So I too choose to have that. I should make that my personal value too, to believe in magic. But
if a business was
like, magic.
And if a business was just too, cold and pragmatic and, cutthroat and hardcore operation, and didn't have the bigger spiritual mission attached to it, we thankfully, I think, have done a good job of building both at Superpower. Both believing in magic, but also believing in hardcore, operation. It's a good duality.
The believing in magic front reminds me that one of your investors is Cyan Bannister, who I think is a really great representation of someone who lives in that magical universe, at least from all the interviews of her that I listened to. And on that note, how do you pick your investors, and how helpful are they? How do you get them to be helpful? Because I think you're also really good at that.
I think I've listened to that interview you're talking about with Cyan, and I was like, oh, that's funny. We have the same way of thinking about this. So I think in most startups, it's really hard to have a massively aligned stakeholder community. So if we think about the stakeholders of the business, customers, advisors, partners, shareholders, teammates, there's a big web of people. And I don't know, let's just take like a Rippling, for example, right? Big SaaS company. I don't know, and the Rippling dashboard, we actually just turned from Rippling to Deal. The founders of Deal are investors in us. But I was like at the Rippling dashboard doing some legacy stuff the other day. And I'm like, this company, like, I'd rate it like a 2 out of 10 on the passion scale. Like customers are kind of like, it's clunky HR software. Like you have basically like no alignment across all the stakeholders, right? No investors like shouting from the rooftop.
The individual subconsciousness is not powering
exactly.
the pyramid.
Right? Like versus like a Superpower, we have every stakeholder so excited to be a part of this. They feel like they're a part of something. They're all championing the same mission and message, which is like, let's upgrade
I remember
humans.
being a very proud and honored and small investor of Superpower. I remember the leadership dashboard for your investors. You're hyping them up to I think, retweet something or get people on board, which is really awesome.
Exactly. So what I'm getting at is like, there's a power that's unlocked when you have, and it's just a mathematical power, right? It's a vector sum of like more aligned inputs. If everyone is telling the same story and there's more people telling the same story, and cohesion around narrative. And we think about virality and just like social awareness as a simple function of the number of nodes, the quality or the reach of those nodes, and the cohesion of the message, and equals V, virality. That message cohesion can be like a massive multiplier effect. Because like, Rippling has a lot of customers, it has a lot of stakeholders, it has big N. A lot of those people probably have big mouthpieces. I think some of the biggest investors in Silicon Valley invest in that company. They have huge customers like Walmart and things. And I just made that up. I don't know if Walmart's a customer, but I'm just saying hypothetically big customer. But then there's like no C coefficient of like aligned narrative. It's like how far can that take you as far as word of mouth and world impact? Like no one's talking about Rippling beyond, And it's a SaaS company, so it's a bit different, but I'm just giving the ultimate extreme examples, right? A B2B SaaS company that's kind of boring and people like to hate on it. And I think Parker's a great entrepreneur, but like...
Sorry, Rippling.
Sorry, Rippling. Sorry, Conrad. But versus like, a consumer company like ours that is like aligned with one of the things that humans really, really care about, which is their own vitality. And, it's easy to hate on the healthcare system and champion better personalization and prevention. We all have a story. And it's sexy, it's empowerment, you feel good, the feedback loop's immediate. We're all rowing in the same direction. I think you just get exponentially more output when the narrative is aligned and everyone's really energized, even if you have the same number of nodes and the same, reach of those nodes.
Who are the founders you look up to?
I respect what Parker has done. Beyond that, I could give the, canonical Elon, but like...
Any of your peers, maybe?
Yeah, I think I look up to John, the founder of Wander. I think he's a really smart man. I look up to my friend Justin Mares, who started a fintech company called TrueMed HSA Payments and a brand called Kettle and Fire, which I consume on a regular basis. I'm really inspired by Palmer. I think
Palmer is awesome.
Anderill's, a really cool company, and they've nailed their brand and have made defense tech a new type of category and cool. And it's incredibly hard, to build in the physical world. So live a lot of product lines, and I think it's just very impressive what they've been able to do. Now you could say, well, once you get contracts, a lot of stuff's possible, but still, I love the mission aspect of it as well, right? It's a real mission-driven company. So mission, recognized mission.
Mm-hmm. If you zoom out 20 years from now, what do you hope people will remember about you?
That he was really kind and he really cared.
Jacob, thank you so much for being on the Luba show. I feel like we could have been talking for hours, so next time I'll book a lot more hours of yours.
Appreciate you, Luba.